back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up and equipping the next generation of nerd culture missionaries. I am one of your hosts, Mark from Lux Digital Church. With me today, I have Bubba, my co-host from Love Thy Nerd, and we are joined by a really awesome couple who are also part of Love Thy Nerd and also partner with Lux and also like missionaries and ministries of their own, which is really cool and a really freaking awesome couple. So we got Luke and Asia who are joining us today. Everybody, how you guys doing?
Hello.
Welcome in.
Hello.
Doing great.
Doing pretty
Thanks
good.
for having us.
Yeah.
Asia, you didn't even do like your normal sign.
I know.
On there.
I got nervous. I got
hello.
nervous. I'm sorry. Oh, hi.
Pretend like you're on a podcast. There we go. Yeah.
pretend like you're in a podcast. He says.
This
Just
is not
pretend and
real.
see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Use your imagination.
Yeah. Just well, we're so glad to have you guys in studio, and I really appreciate you guys kind of jumping in a little last minute. If we're being honest,
Hey man, look! Don't
Keeping it
take
real.
away the podcast magic. Nobody needs to know when we signed them. Like it's totally fine.
I'll take that blame though. I knew a couple of days ago, and I just don't bring things up to Asia.
Yeah, I
immediately
had no
all the
clue.
time, so
You guys
So it's gonna
barely
be
live in the
great.
same house. It's fine.
barely. It's fine. Yeah.
Zach
Oh.
asked me when I was sitting directly next to Asia, and I still didn't bring it up. But in my defense, we were watching Ahsoka, so
That's true. It's great. I found out from Zach while I was on stream yesterday, and he was like, "Oh yeah, so are you good for that time?" I was like, "What are we talking about? Maybe I don't know."
What is it? So what I hear is that Luke, like me, also gets in trouble for not telling his wife like valuable pieces of information that he
what
should
I
be
hear is
communicating.
God has the perfect plan, and everything works out according to. what
Don't
he's
church
got.
it up. Here's
Wow.
the thing. Like
Yeah.
we have a calendar that my wife Ann and I we keep, and we still miss stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
daily.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
I had Strong Tower Con in my calendar on 2 different weeks. And Asia's like, which one is the correct week? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I have to look that up. Come to find out, it happens a week earlier than I was expecting. So, but now,
So neither.
now I know.
You
It was
so
it
you
was
gotta
the
work out
first
3
one.
weeks.
It was the first one.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, it was fun. You know, I try really hard. We have this really cool. This is like probably the highest tech thing I've ever done. We have one of those frame TV things that Luke found at like a Best Buy
Yeah.
crazy deal. And so we have that in the kitchen, and I have like some app that like casts our schedules, and so I have like all of our schedules together, including my brother's, who also has like a random schedule, and so it just shows all the things for that day, and it makes me feel like I'm way more organized than I actually am. So
I
think
I
it's doing
have
its
to
job.
imagine that your brother, like his schedule just says like he just puts on there the days that he wears a shirt. And like everything else is just blank.
he's either
today's
shirtless
a
or
shirt day.
flying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it happens so frequent. You don't even put shirtless on the radar. Like you put the days you do
It's
wear
when-
a shirt on the schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
you
that's
guys
an
can play around.
understood
Flying.
thing. So if you, yeah,
It's a shirt.
it's
day.
like
Yeah.
it's like the details of the schedule like event. It's like, oh, Jacob is flying, and then in the notes, please wear a shirt.
Yeah,
Don't
I'll
forget-
also
Reminder.
wear a shirt today. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hey,
He's gonna love this being on the internet.
Yeah,
he's
it's
never
gonna be
gonna
great.
he's never gonna listen to this. Jacob and shirts aside, hey, let's kind of get into this a little bit. Tell us kind of about you guys. I'll give a quick little intro. So Luke and Asia, you are a unit. We talked about you guys are a couple. You guys are married. You're together. But you both are very independent in your streaming. Luke, of course, I say of course because I know this as a fact, works for us as our director of missions at Love Thy Nerd, and handles
Glad
all
you're
that
confident
stuff.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. We had a pretty long talk, so I'm pretty confident about it. But Asia, you also do your own streaming, and you work for a company called Switcher Studio, and doing really great things over there. So can you guys just kind of tell us a little bit about Asia? We'll start with you first. What is it that you do in this space of nerd culture mission work?
Yeah. So currently, I like you said, I work full time for a like multicam streaming software company. And so it's kind of cool how like the Lord provides in like really random ways. But I end up like product testing for this company all the time. And it provided me the opportunity to like work with my work schedule to stream. And so I don't know, it's just, I view it as, being a good steward of like what the Lord has provided. And so because I have that opportunity to product test, like weekly, I try to use that time, to provide a safe haven, a community for people to like come together and, have like, a safe environment to build friendships. And I try to facilitate that on my streams. And so specifically what that looks like is I do a lot of co-working streams. I feel like a lot of the people that connect with me are people that work from home or work jobs that they can have like a stream up or whatever, and they just want to hang out. So we do a lot of co-working streams, and I also play some chill games and cook and sew and do digital art. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, literally a little bit of everything. Yeah.
One of my funniest experiences lately was the last cooking stream I did. I actually rated Mark. And then Mark asked me what I made. I honestly, I can't remember what I made, but whatever I said, it didn't resound with him. And he was like, I'm not going to lie. Like everything you just said are things that I hate. So I think it was great. I think it was great.
There was like the word, there was so many words in it of things that I've either never had or like
a bunch of vegetables.
As a man who wants to be described as like a Viking at the very depth of who he is, right? Like none of the foods that you described gave me that vibe. Like
I think like Vikings eat a lot of fish. I don't know what you're talking about.
Not that Viking.
Vikings probably, that's fair. Vikings probably did.
Yeah, they eat it, but
I've
it's
watched
icky and they don't
How to
like
Train
it.
Your Dragon, so I'm aware.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best things my wife ever said to me was at a Valentine's Day dinner when she made steak, and I ate most of it with my hands. And she said, "You look like a Viking right now." And she meant it to be offensive, but it was the best thing.
Oh, badge of honor for you, my guy.
I was like, let's do this again then. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
Well, Asia, you're also one of the hosts of the Moviga podcast. Talk about that for a second.
Yes. Yeah. I guested on Moviga a few times, I think with Luke most of those times over the last few years. And then I think it's been like a year and a half ago. I want to say it was like last February. Brian from Moviga asked me if I wanted to be a regular member of the team. And I was like, wow, they don't think I'm dumb and that my takes are really weird. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun hanging with those guys and arguing with
Yes.
some very strong opinions that don't make sense to me. And I feel like I have grown. I was actually talking to them recently about how I think about the first few weeks that I was on that podcast, and I was like really nervous about like having a contrary opinion to whatever was being talked about. And now I just call it out. So I feel like that's like personal growth.
Brian.
I feel like this is sanctification for me. Yeah.
It's a process.
So it is. It really is. But yeah, so I've really been enjoying continuing to help them grow that podcast and talk about nerdy things we love and build friendships along the way. It's a fun time. I have really enjoyed. I've been streaming for now the last like 2.5 years, and I kind of can't remember a time before that. So I think that's a good thing. Maybe.
I love that you basically executed your podcast squatters' rights on Moviga. And just said, I've been here for long enough. I'm a part of the team. And so let's move forward.
It's true. It's true.
And to be fair, good move. Mm-hmm. That was a good move.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think it's really interesting too. So the way I started, I might be jumping the gun here, but I started leaning into streaming because I would hang out in Luke's communities all the time as he was, starting to stream and build friendships and, find that they're more than just him out there that like love the Lord and just want to like create a safe space for people. And it was like through those friendships that like really encouraged me to start streaming. And I've done content creation for like basically the entire time we've been married. I think maybe even from before that. And my heart behind that was just to like use fandoms or use food or use whatever as a way to connect with people. And I was so happily surprised when I started streaming that, like, for me at least, like that was like the most natural way. I don't know. There was like so much, like it gave back so much.
Yeah.
And in a way that I never felt with like produced content or just posting to socials and stuff. So yeah, I've really loved it so far.
Well, my wife and I have said on numerous occasions that there's almost nobody that we know personally that exudes like the influencer persona or has the influencer gene more than Asia. And so like it just...
Thank you. I think thank you.
Yeah. No, did I say it wrong? I meant that as a compliment.
Basically the Vikings.
Yeah. Okay, good.
You're like the Viking of influencers, basically.
Thank you. Wow.
Well, hey, Luke,
That's
how
awesome.
about
Thank
you,
you.
man? Like, how did you get into this stuff? And what do you do? What stuff did you end up getting into?
Yeah. I think I got my start like many of the people I come into contact with in the streaming nerd gaming sphere. And that is towards the beginning of COVID, a lot of people were stuck at home. We were on lockdown looking for community. And there was a time where I started to dabble in streaming or creating YouTube content immediately after college. But I moved to a new state. All sorts of things happened, and that kind of got set aside. And so the midst of COVID, I decided to just start streaming, purely to cultivate community, meet people that were into what I was into. And then that slowly I saw the opportunities to be able to share my faith or just like ultimately live out my faith, not be ashamed of the gospel and just start sharing when people are asking questions. Or there was a time where I'm like, the guys I'm playing with are definitely not family friendly, but I am a family friendly guy. And so I was riding this line of like, do I make a family friendly stream? Do I like just let them cut loose? Like, what do I do? And ultimately that just guided me into like, no, this is how I want to live out like my faith. And like, this is what I'm going to do. I mentioned it to the friends I play with and they were like all on board. Like, no, we're going to try to do our best.
I love that phrase. We're going to try and do our best.
Yeah, exactly. So at the beginning, and I probably still have this command in my Twitch streams, but you could like exclamation point and then their name, and it would come up with an apology, like, sorry, like they're trying their best. But it was one of those things where it's like I wanted to include them because I didn't want to push them away due to like my beliefs, or like I didn't want them to treat them any different, and I didn't want them to treat me any different. And so it was just one of those things that we could come to agree on, and a really cool experience. And we're actually all still in a text group. A lot of us aren't playing as many games anymore, but we're all talking about Starfield right now. In our, text
hey,
group.
we don't have time. All right, we're going to push past that.
I know.
There's not enough time.
Right on past. That's the next podcast. But like we're still talking, that relationship's still there just from the way we navigated back then. But ultimately that kind of pushed me into like, I want to take this just community building opportunity and create a ministry opportunity. And at the time I'm like, man, no one else is doing this. There aren't any other Christians on Twitch. Like everyone I look up, if I want to watch Halo or like Apex at the time, or like listing off all these things, everyone's toxic or just like belittling to people. And there's no real sense of community, and definitely no Christians on this platform.
Definitely.
And then I was definitely not. And then I just started meeting people, running in that circle, and was so encouraged by meeting other people that thought the same way I did, had the similar beliefs, that were also using Twitch and Discord and just their passion for video games as a tool for kingdom building and furthering the gospel and living out their faith. And so, long story short, through that, I met Matt and Bubba of Love Thy Nerd.
They sound cool.
And they're
Those
all
sound
right.
Yeah, those sound like really, I mean, those are some good
Yeah,
names.
well,
like
6 out of 10.
solid
Good, not
trustworthy
great,
names.
but man, we'll take it, you know?
Yeah. Really trustworthy names.
But I remember our first conversation vividly, and just everything you guys were saying, things that I was bringing up, like was just lining up. And very early on, I told Asia, I'm not in this I don't want to be the next big thing. I don't want to be like this big streamer that doesn't have time for people and can't even read chat. I want to be a part of something that's bigger. And so right off the bat, like Matt, Bubba, myself just met. I'm like, how can I help? Like, what can I do?
It was a bizarre conversation, to be sure.
Yeah. And so their reply to that was, you like board games? Because Bubba was up here, they were doing like a live stream because COVID shut down all the board game conventions. And so they were up here doing a live stream. I'm like, I played Catan. And they're like, good enough. And,
Yeah, we can fix that. No problem.
Hold up, like pre-LTN, Catan was like the deepest you were. Luke, I'm like, as long as I've known you, I just always assumed that like you came to LTN is a full-fledged board gamer. Like,
I had the worst credentials. I'm surprised they let me on.
It's a sanctification process. Asia
Oh my
talked
gosh.
about it, okay?
Is it like 2 years? Is it?
Ooh,
like
yeah.
the-
Yeah.
About 2-3 years of
Go back on his
games.
TikTok, man. You can follow that process in real time. It's gnarly.
Just watch it happen. Wow. Yeah. If you piece those all together and sped them up, it would be like watching your collection go in like one of those time lapse videos.
Absolutely.
Just like slap all those TikToks together and we would see the collection just like assemble, which is,
Yeah. When I mention this, like when I'm into something, I'm either all in or I'm just
Boy
not.
goes hard. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he only knew Asia for like 6 days. It was crazy.
It's crazy. So crazy.
It's true. Hey, when you know, you know. But yeah, so out of that, like I still stream. I still have my stream. I do that twice a week in the mornings, and so I'm connecting with a lot of people of the same vibe as like are landing on Asia's streams, where they're at work or they're working from home, just have something on in the background. And I'm just all over the place. I'm playing Starfield right now. I was mad into some Marvel Snap.
Are you out?
Burnt myself out, dude. I sat out a whole season and
Finally.
I haven't picked up Loki yet.
I didn't even know.
so-
Mark, are you out?
I've been out since
Dude,
March.
here's the thing. I gave myself an attaboy yesterday because I thought about Marvel Snap and I was like, you know what? I haven't played since High Evolutionary. I'm so sorry if you're listening to this podcast. You have no idea what we're talking about. Marvel Snap was a mobile card game that took the world by storm. Absolute storm.
Literally like on the week of
man.
Megazord too.
Yes.
Like it was like
If I recall correctly, that was Luke's fault.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I think he was like, dude, have you heard of this game?
I think
Mark was already
got me
playing.
into it.
Oh, Mark, it's your fault. Wow.
Yeah,
you
like
did this to us.
I was a beta tester. Like we were early
okay.
adopters on that one that I was like looping people into. Yeah, because we podcast about card games, and so one of the things that I love about this conversation that's very unique, and not to continue on the Marvel Snap.
No, thank you for getting off. Thank you for finding the off ramp.
None of us who are playing anymore, but we can all talk about it with a high level of authority. Yeah. One of the things that I love about some of the ministry, like your guys' ministries are very independent of one another. And at the same time, there are points when it also meets and complements and sort of works together. And like just one of the, like you wouldn't think that you both live in the same house because you both have like very unique and totally dope streaming spaces that are like so different. Like most people have, and they're very, very unique, with like, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, like all of Luke's board games and LTN stuff in the background, and Asia, like your like really unique flair and art, and the washer and dryer.
I try not to bring up the washer and dryer. I don't know if it's shade or what.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. And so there's this really cool blending of that, but then there's also this very cool blending where most of the people we've talked to on the show, very digital, right? Super, almost exclusively digital. I would say Steve that we talked to from Save Point in the last episode, digital with the intention of moving people to physical, right? But you guys are sort of this hybrid blend of, because it's very authentically nerd ministry, right? And not necessarily digital or gamer ministry, where like the goal is like, how do we engage with nerds wherever they are? And that looks nationally, globally, with conferences. It looks like that with Asia and your live streams, but then it also looks like, hey, we also have a local game night and close friends in our immediate area that we just hang out with and game with who aren't believers, and we're part of their lives and part of their story. I think that's really, really cool. And one of the things that we love to do on the show is to explore calling, because a lot of people who are thinking about getting into this, we all know there's a difference between really loving video games or really loving board games and being called into this ministry, like putting these things that we love on the altar and saying, I want to do this for God's glory. And I think that discernment process is really important, which is why we ask on the show for each guest, like, what did that look like for you to like really decide that this isn't just something that I like, but this is something that God wants to use redemptively in my story and in the story of the people around me. So Asia, take us through a little bit of like, was it something that kind of fell in your lap? Was it always the passion that you had? How did you end up where you are today? And how did you go through that discernment process of, no, this is really what God wants me to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So while I really enjoy all kinds of things, if that's not obvious, I really just truly believe that the Lord has like created us for relationship. And I think that everything that I do and say, everything should kind of be grounded in that. And so I do seek to be intentional in like, taking the things that can connect us, like common interests or whatever they may be, and using it as a catalyst to build those relationships. And I think that's just always been like something that the Lord is like, yeah, I guess like maybe in college is when I started recognizing this like desire to really be, without it sounding like, lame and cliche, like be authentic or just like be relational with people. And like my big belief is that like hospitality is like in yourself, like being a safe place for people to be together and to like thrive in relationship. And so I really believe that that's not constrained to like a specific place. That's not constrained to your home. It's like really what you're bringing to the table. I mean, obviously like in submission to the Lord. So I just have like taken that perspective and like tried to like pour that into all that I do. And it's interesting like how that, works with our marriage is like me and Luke have been strong believers in like marriage. This obviously like there's such nuance to how this all like fleshes out, but like for us, we just really believe in like a great marriage partnership is like being able to serve better, to love each other and love others better together than we can separately. But that doesn't necessarily have to look like we're doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, because I also believe, like, acknowledge the fact that the Lord has like created both of us very differently. And so the way in which we like partner together to make that happen, like, doesn't have to be like we're doing the exact same thing. So that's really what has driven me in my own like individual like ways that I've been leaning into the community, whether it's online or like through the game nights or even through our young adult like small group that we lead every week. It's just really cool to see. I don't know, like I think especially it's a very special experience working alongside our young adult group, or like serving and like building relationships with the young adult group, because Luke and I both bring different like perspectives and like have different strengths as we like work together to lead that group. And I just think that's really cool. Like, it's just a great like visual like example of like what that can look like. And it's cool to see it like on a small scale and then on a larger scale as we like lean into all like the online, or just like for Luke with the cons and stuff, like being able to be out and not in our local community. But yeah, I feel like I'm rambling.
Well, I mean, to be specific, and it's okay that you ramble. Hey, we get it. I'm a rambler too. I'm a rambling man. And so, but you had mentioned the small group that you and Luke help to lead. Now that's a part of your local church. That's not just a small group of people in general. It is in conjunction with a local physical church that you both obviously attend, and then also our COO at Love Thy Nerd that he attends as well. He and his family, Matt Warmbier. And so, can you kind of talk a little bit about how you guys got into that? Because I think that is a piece of the calling for you two together, and that might actually kind of bridge into a little bit of Luke's calling as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like sometimes calling can be like Lord, like let it, search your heart and like let me to see a sign, like a direction of where to go. But in our experience with specifically the young adult group, it was really just like we realized that there was a need in the church, that we had not a very big, but like a growing number of like young adults in our church, where most of the members of the church were like retirees or like young families. And I feel like those are like most of the demographic, but like there was a small group of people that, didn't quite fit those demographics. And I think there was a student that like visited and asked if there was a small group, and our family pastor came up to me and Luke literally the next day and was like, do you guys want to leave this? And what's cool is up until that point, we had been at the church probably for like 3 months or maybe 4 months. But we had just like from day one, like try to make it very clear that like we are here to do life with you all, and whatever that looks like we want to serve however we can. And I think because we had already established that, like from the get-go when we became members, it was like a natural, like of course, like we were like friend of mine for him. And what's been really cool with as we're about a year into hosting that young adult group, is we found, I know for sure this is like the Lord's sovereignty in it all, but it is just really interesting that like pretty much all of the people that make up young adult group are huge nerds in their own ways.
Birds of a feather, man. Like
some
no
that
matter
are
how
like,
hard you try,
it's true.
It's gravitational.
It's crazy.
It just shows that statistically the people that you encounter in life are going to be nerds, and so you should come to NCMS and learn.
Don't want to
how
bury the lead.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just little plug there.
So profound, yeah. But yeah, so it's just interesting to see like how the Lord like kind of had us all converge with each other. Like we've got people that are super into WrestleMania. We got people that are streaming Fortnite to TikTok. We got all kinds, and it's just been really cool to see. I don't know, like it's given us more. I don't know. We just like did not know what to expect when we started hosting, and it's just been like a huge blessing that like we are so like constantly surprised at. Like it's so fulfilling. And
your small group
just
doing
further
like premium live events from WWE, like watch parties. It just it hits
That's
me in a
true.
part of my heart I did not even know existed. Like I'm a wrestling fan, I get it, but for them to be like, do you guys like wrestling? You guys want to watch this thing that I'm like deeply into? And then for you guys to go, sure. Like, what the heck? Sure. What's the worst that could happen? I love it.
Why not?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's so true.
One of the things that I love that you kind of brought up in this was this idea that you have this real deep commitment and conviction to relationship, right? Because I think that God calls us into things in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that is this like, come to Jesus, the Apostle Paul moment where your name gets changed and you become the new person, right? And I think sometimes that's a slow development. Like God begins to open doors and you just walk through the right doors. And then sometimes it's just this really deep, heartfelt conviction that says, this is who I am made to be. And then you just seek and look for ways to live that out. But what's really powerful is that most people, or a lot of people, would think, oh, okay, Asia has this conviction and this commitment that's been placed on her heart by God, right? And that's part of him for relationship. But she's going to the very place where relationship isn't possible, which is the internet. And what you've done is proven that wrong, right? Like you have very organically sort of like brought yourself into this hybrid lifestyle that shows that like, hey, nope, the small group that's in my house and the people that hang out in my co-working stream are people, no matter what, and I can build relationship with them whether that's them being in my live stream and us listening to music and working together, or a cooking stream, or when they're inside my house and we're watching WrestleMania together.
Exactly.
And I think that that's really cool and super, super powerful, because I think it does such a good job of grasping what the next generation of not just missionaries, but people who live life on mission, period, are going to have to be like, because the generations that are coming are increasingly hybrid. And I think you're going to see people like yourself who, like they're missionaries, but it's not going to be the difference between digital or physical missionaries. They are just missional in both of those spaces, and they live their life authentically in both of those areas. So I think that's a really powerful reality for people to grasp and wrap their minds around.
Luke, what about you?
Yeah, Luke, why don't you tell us?
Beat
tell us
that.
about you. Tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm
Luke.
still here.
Good luck.
No guarantees here.
Looks like I had no board games, and I have 400 board games.
God is good.
God is good. Yeah.
The Lord provides. All right. So for me, it all started like when I kind of saw my calling, and honestly kind of turned an aspect of my life around. It was back, and honestly, there's a lot of nostalgia right now for me, because there's this little game called Destiny.
Never heard of it. Yeah.
And right now they reintroduced an old raid, one of my favorites, Crota.
gosh,
if you know, you know. And I've been watching
Dark
people
World. That
play
one's
that.
almost making me get back
And
into it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Dude, I might, and you might understand why after this, because when that raid initially dropped back in like 2015, I was straight up addicted. There's no sugarcoating it. I was doing that raid.
I'm gonna let you finish.
You can have three.
Crota had one of the
you can
best
have three
raids in all of
characters.
Destiny. Yeah.
It was so good. But you can have three characters, and you can do the raid once on all three of those characters, like earning loot. I would play on all three of those characters, and then I would delete a character and start over, run through the whole story real quick, load up on my gear again, and do it a fourth time before the reset. So, because like I needed all of that. I think
we might be
gear,
crossing
like,
over into
immediately.
problem territory. Like,
Wow, that is.
It was a problem.
That is.
I mean,
wild.
Mark and I like that game.
So this is
but
when Asia and
I'm not a licensed therapist or
I
anything.
told you.
Man,
I was on board. Until the delete a character statement came out of your mouth, and then I was lost. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's back when I was like, that's when I first discovered Twitch. I was watching this guy on YouTube, and I'm like, man, I feel like he's talking to someone. And it's like, oh, there's this thing called Twitch. Like, he's live streaming this. And he did that. And I'm like, dude, I have so much time in the week. I don't have relationships I have to worry about. I was wrong. And that's kind of where, like, I mean, Asia and I had tough conversations. I had conversations with some other people in my life, my roommate being one of them, who we both got into Destiny, but I played way more than he did. And it was just some tough conversations, because like our relationships, like specifically me and Asia's relationship, but other people, I was just locking myself away, doing LFGs, like just trying to cram it down. And so through conversations with Asia, through good conversations with just like people that were a good positive influence on my life, church leaders, like people I worked with, my background was very much like I was taught, if you're distracted by something, if something offends you, like you cut it off and like burn it. So if like you're distracted by your Xbox, you need to literally cast it into the fire, because it could tempt somebody else. Like that was my upbringing.
I literally set a set of World of Warcraft discs on
Hey,
fire
man,
at one point.
we
in
have
my
all
life
showed
to
the
try to
devil
get
who's
away from
boss
it. So I
before.
feel you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely used fire. Yeah, for it. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm very thankful for the influence that I had at that moment in my life, because it was very much people were like, God is bigger than Destiny, and God is bigger than your Xbox and your addiction. And not only like you don't have to like get rid of that, because obviously you're passionate about it, but like God can redeem stuff like that. And I was just like, oh yeah, you're right. and like from that moment forward, it's like, okay, how can I use this instead of like destroying relationships, but building relationships. And so that's been, again, like, just to echo what Asia was saying, like, our whole ministry, our whole like outlook on this is relationship building. And so how can I use something that, like, one of my nerdy passions, whether it's video games, whether it's us watching the latest Disney Plus show, whether it's too many board games, like, how can I use that in order to push relationships forward and build relationships? And so that's why I so quickly hopped on with LTN, because that's what we put first is relationships. We meet people where they're at, whether it's online in a raid or it's at a convention playing board games, being plugged into booths, like just helping people there, playing games with people, putting that relationship first, hearing their stories, like just listening to them. Like, people can talk. When they talk about themselves, myself included, like, we could talk. And so being able to just sit down and listen with people where they trust us. And further down the road, Mark, you said it, like, it's not always overnight. It's not always that moment, but like days, weeks, months, years down the road, they're asking some solid questions, and we're able to like answer them and talk freely because they trust us and they love us because we put the relationship first. And so, I mean, from that moment, like, on, like, that's, and I'm so thankful Asia and I like see eye to eye on that. And like, we're building relationships. And to go into what she was saying as well, we're still learning, like, you know, what can we do, quote unquote, independently? Like, we have our own streams. We got our own rooms with different vibes because we're reaching a specific people group. But also, like, where are we combining our efforts? So we just launched a newsletter together. We have a combined Discord because Lord knows we all have too many Discords.
Hey, I just proposed another Discord to another group of
it's-
people, so you can't talk to me like that, okay?
I have like 50 Discords, which is on the low side. But we're learning. We're not perfect. We're figuring it out as we go. But man, we love building relationships.
And I think that you guys
getting
are
to
so
know
good
people.
at that. Like, I've gotten to know you pretty well over the last couple of years, and just like seeing it, you know, Asia, when you're literally just doing your co-working streams, which Luke so desperately wants to get going in every Discord server that he's in. He's always got these co-working areas that he tries to pop in, and it's just not my bend. It's really not. But sometimes I'll pop in and I'll just see people that are hanging out there, and it's like, man, you can fake it, but only for so long, right? When people are just hanging out with you and watching you, it's like you forget sometimes that you're live streaming. I've been in the middle of a live stream myself where I'm streaming for, 6 hours and in some of my longest stretches, and I just forget that I'm live streaming. And so like it's in those moments when your guard kind of falls, that people actually get to kind of experience true community and true friendship and life with you. And I love that with both of you, you're just so good at that. Luke, you were talking about reading chat. That's one of the biggest issues I have with live streaming. And Mark is also really good at this, is just reading chat. I'll go 15 minutes without reading any chat because I'm doing a thing, man. I'm locked into the game or I'm doing whatever. But the way that you two connect with your communities is just phenomenal. And it leads to those deeper connections. And so as somebody who's seen it, right, and somebody who's benefited from both of you being really good at what you do, thank you. And if anybody has any questions about it, please reach out to Luke and Asia. We'll give you all their info at the end of the show, but make sure that you reach out. And some things can't be taught. Sorry. But there are some other things that are pretty formulaic that if you're trying to reach people, period, there are people out there that can help.
Yeah. I think there's a lot about focus in that. And I think there's a lot about focus for both of you in terms of like your level of intentionality with how you communicate to your communities online, and then also how you intentionally build relationships and earn the right to speak into people's lives. That I think is, I think it's right. Like, neither of you guys are like I'm going to scream into the microphone and we're going to go look for, I think even if I've ever watched I don't know, Luke, if I've ever been watching his stream when you got a dub on Fortnite.
It's only on TikTok, man. Only on TikTok.
I think even like a win for Luke in Fortnite is like, yeah, right. Like, I mean, maybe you scream more than that than I know, but I haven't had that experience with you on stream.
That's
right?
Luke. That's my Luke. Yeah,
that's really good. Whoa.
There you go. It's a little bit more laid back, and I really enjoy that. But there has to also be some things that you've learned, right? Over the, for Asia, it's been what 2.5 years that you've been making content kind of in the space. Luke, I think it's actually harder to track down like what the starting point was for you between like making some content out of college and then like your story of coming into the space has more to do with just like figuring out where gaming is rightfully exists in your life. Yeah. And so I think that story is a little bit longer. But if you had to go back and you had to tell yourself something that you know now that you wish you knew then, what would you tell yourself? What's like one thing that would be like, Asia, for you? What is one thing that 2.5 years ago, Asia, you wish you could just like grab her and tell her this is something you need to know?
Yeah, I think
be
I would
gentle
say
to my friend
like
Asia, okay? Like
probably
we like her, okay?
Yeah, I'll try. I'm very mean. So
well, last episode Steve was talking about shaking his former self, and so yeah.
Oh yes, too aggressive. Yeah, I would say like just like, I mean, this goes back to the intentionality thing. Like, just don't forget that like even like the passive ways that people observe you and interact with you can like make such a difference. And so like, yeah, it's that holistic mindset of like, in everything we do, like do to the glory of God and like do like be intentional. And that's not an exhaustive way that's like, oh my gosh, I can't like can I not breathe for like a second without having to be like so like on guard. But it's just like it's an encouragement that like even in the passive ways that you interact with people, it can like be life-giving and encouraging to others. So like I guess it's like on the flip side, it's like don't lose heart when you feel like you're not making a difference, because we've had like me and Luke together, we've had like such interesting like conversations with people after the fact of like, oh, I didn't even know this was like helpful to you, or like I didn't know I was doing anything. And I don't know, it's just like an encouraging that like the Lord is the one that is doing the work. And so like it's not about like our own will. It's just about like being faithful and like seeing how the Lord will provide and grow those relationships. So that's what I'd say.
To be honest, that's really great advice for anybody who's in ministry of any type. One of the guys who leads worship for us just left a job as an engineer to become a pastor at the church I used to work for. And I met with him the other day and I said, how you doing? He's like, it's been a very hard 10 days. And I said, you get to the end of every day and you're not sure if you did anything, right? Like that's the feeling. And I told him, like, it takes 2 years. It takes 2 years for that to go away. And then it's still around sometimes, but it takes about 2 years before you finally get to the point where you feel like there's a point in what you're doing that you're actually starting to see some fruit come out of it. And that's hard. So it's really great advice for anybody who's thinking about this, because you'll think you'll jump into it and you'll get some immediate results. But the truth of the matter is it'll be a hard thing not to lose heart for the first 18 to 24 months. And there will be a constant challenge to say no to throwing the white towel up and hanging it up and being done with it. And so that perseverance and resilience, what we call in church planting world grit, like we take tests to determine your grit, and that grit is needed in this space as much as it is in church planting, because it's easy to quit. I love that. Luke, how about you? What would you say to Luke when he started?
I would say you're not alone. I mentioned this before, but like coming into it thinking I was all alone, if I could get specific, I would drop some names. Be like, hey, go look up these people, like meet these people, team up, like do whatever you gotta do. But like just know that you're not alone. And like honestly, even today, I need that reminder. Megazord Summit last year was so encouraging because all of us like felt a little bit stranded and alone, even though we all pretty much knew of each other, but like just coming together and being like, hey, we're all on the same team. We're all doing this. There's like, we believe in each other, and just know that, yeah, you're not doing this alone. There's people that support you and believe in what you're doing. And like, even we've had some of these conversations, like we'll meet people and there's sometimes, you know, that are outside of nerd culture that we feel like they need some convincing of just, hey, no, like this is a real people group. Like, here's some numbers. Like, this is what we do. This is why we do it. And like, by the end of it, they're like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of get that. But then there's other people that just like get it right away. And like, that's super encouraging. And like, we've had some conversations like that recently, and it's them just believing in you. That's just enough to get you to the next day, get you to the next stream, to the next piece of content, to the next project. And that's what I find super encouraging, even though I need the constant reminder today of, hey, you're not alone. There's several people, like, we're here, we're on the same team, we have the same goal. We might have some differences, we might have different approaches, but we're all on the same team.
Luke, what I love about that is there will be people who hear this, and there's two types of people, I think. There's the one type of person that comes into this and they feel alone. And there'll be another person who comes in this, and because of their competitive edge, will be alone. They'll try to be alone, right?
Yeah.
Instead of looking for opportunities to work together and to find alliances, they will look for all that they'll see is competition, like people that they have to beat. And what NCMU is, NCMC, NCMS, all of the nerd culture stuff that we're starting, all of the
NCM
letters,
alphabet soup,
is to shout out as loudly. Yes, all of those things. It's a shout out as loud as we can. Like, you aren't alone, and you don't have to be alone, and you are better together than you are competing with one another.
Absolutely.
And so, like, that's what this is about. That's what I love about Love Thy Nerd. Is like how just adamant they are about working together regardless of brand recognition, because that's our heart too at Lux. Is like we just want to do kingdom work, and I freaking love that. And I think that little lesson that you learned is really valuable for people, because when it comes to the things that Asia was talking about, right, is like, hey, be encouraged, stick with it. There's going to be hard days. You are making a difference. All of those things are easier to hear when you're in community with people who are doing it with you. And I think that is, and you guys are in a very unique spot, because most people who step into this, they're doing it either with like the permission of their spouse, or in opposition to their spouse's wishes, not with their spouse, in alliance with them, right? And I think that is so freaking cool. It's been one of the biggest blessings in my life that Jen is on my side. And even if she's not a gamer, like, she's for Lux. And it's also really cool to see that, like, you guys had some of that baked in to doing this together. And, if there's anything that I can say from this, if you're getting into this, like, if you're thinking about getting into nerd culture ministry and your spouse is against you getting into nerd culture ministry, it's a great sign that your discernment might be off, because the Spirit speaks in unity, and it will speak to both of you. And so I think that's a very important piece in the discernment process. Well, Bubba, man, how do you feel about bringing us home here and telling everybody what they should be doing?
Yeah, you should be checking out the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit that Luke and Asia are going to be at, and Mark is going to be at, and I'm going to be at, and so many other people are going to be at. This is going to be November 8th through the 10th. At the time of this recording, we're in 2023. If it's not 2023, forget everything I'm telling you. This only pertains to right now. November 8th through the 10th. You can go and sign up at ncmsummit.com. We would love to have you. This is, we hope that you are somebody who is learning about nerd culture ministry, or somebody that loves it and wants to share it with somebody who doesn't know anything about it, because that's what NCMS is about. NCMS is, for lack of a better way to put it, an awareness campaign. It's not a gathering of nerds. It is a gathering of ministry leaders so that they can see the impact, see the importance, see the need in some way, shape, or form to engage with this demographic. And so join us at the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit in sunny Marble Falls. It is currently 104 degrees in Marble Falls. It's like Super Mario 3 sunny right now. It is very hot. Hopefully in November, not as hot.
Wow.
And that's kind of what we're praying for. But come and hang out with us. We would love to do that. And by extension, you should really look into joining the collective. This is something that we're building from the ground up. The Summit is a part of it. NCMU, this podcast, The Underground, is a part of it. But the collective is the backbone. It is us getting together. It is us being better together than we are apart. The same thing that Luke and Asia just said, that they are better together than they are apart. That's our heartbeat. And like Mark said, we are dedicated to raising up the next generation of nerd culture missionaries. And we don't even know what that looks like. But we know that you want to be a part of that. It is an iterative process. It's going to be changing day to day. But you can go to NCM Collective and find out more about that. And it's going to take you straight to our summit where, like I already said, you're going to want to be there. So make it happen. And I can't wait to see you. In November, I'm going to meet you in person. And if not, I'm coming after you.
That, my friends, is a threat to close out the show.
It's not a threat, it's a promise.
It's a promise.
Those are all throughout Scripture, right?
Yeah, they are. They are commitments upon the Lord to bring vengeance upon thy enemy. We find that over and over again. Well, guys, that is going to wrap up this episode. Luke and Asia, thank you guys so much for being willing to come on. We really appreciate you guys and love what you're doing. Big supporter of both of your ministries. So thank you for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks again for having us.
Yes, thank you.
That's going to do it for this episode of the NCMU podcast. Be sure to come back for the next episode, though. We're going to be joined by a special guest who's also one of our keynote speakers at NCMS, and we're really excited about that. So I'm not going to spoil it all. You'll have to look at like the description of the title of the next episode to see who's going to be on it. But he has his own podcast as well, I hear, and we're really excited to have him.
We're going to have somebody who has a podcast on? It's
in.
crazy.
Yeah. So if you go to ncmsummit.com right now, which you should already be doing, you're literally on it.
I'm there right now, Mark.
Right now while you're listening to it.
I'm also there.
Scroll down to look at our keynote speakers and then just roll the dice and figure out which one you think it is and see if you're right. I just got you to go to ncmsummit.com to play a game with no prize.
No prize.
Congratulations. Yeah.
It's the easiest escape room ever.
Button.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode of the NCMU podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, be sure to come back for the next one.